Good morning, viewers, and a hearty welcome to yet another episode of Aisha Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive. In our episode last month, we spoke about getting better fuel efficiency using simple techniques. This week, we look at another issue that has been bothering the logistics industry, not just in India, but across the globe. We all know that logistics operations happen throughout the night and day, especially movement of trucks. But we often forget that the person behind the wheel is a human being and is subject to fatigue, which can often result in him falling asleep on the wheel or even losing concentration. There have been many accidents and deaths as a result of the above. There are many companies who have asked their transporters to completely stop night driving. At the same time, a few companies have taken a conscious decision to stop night driving themselves. But how does all this work? How does one ensure that drivers stop at night? Or is this economically viable? Also, how do you tune the mindset of drivers who feel more comfortable driving at night or have to put in those extra hours at night to make sure they get into a city before the no entry norms kick in? Let's hear it from true transporters who are successfully implementing the same in their company. We have on Moving India with Nayi Soch today, Byram Dhalla from BD Dhalla Transport and Abhishek Goyal from BLR Logistics. The reason we chose two transporters from two different generations is also to get a broader perspective to the issue. So let's hear it from the senior transporter first, Byram Dhalla, but coming up after this very short break. You are watching Aisha Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive. See you on the other side of this break.
How do you really define new? They say the new takes you beyond possible and makes you do what's unthinkable. Now imagine a world where trucks never have to stop, where no one has to wait when there is an emergency, and happiness always arrives on time. In a hurried world, no one worries about kids getting to school safely. Fathers always come home with a surprise. Mothers sleep peacefully when their son is out on the road 24/7. In a digitally connected world, the real connections are never lost. Friendships are never left behind when work gets tougher. The wheels are kept moving by dedicated professionals. And ultimately, it's not just technology, but people who save the planet. The new thinking not only makes our business grow, but also gives us newer ways to celebrate life. Aisha, Nayi Soch, Naye Raste.
Welcome back to Aisha Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive. Byram Dhalla shares in thoughts on restricting night drivers for truck drivers.
I'm Byram Dhalla, Director at BD Dhalla Transport Private Limited, based out of Mumbai. I've been in business about 35 years myself, and maybe 5 years into my business life, we got a client who was very active and a global presence in oil field exploration services. It was around this time that we first got an exposure to running a safer business. It was largely very traditional in its operation up to that point of time. Of course, trucking, the road infrastructure, everything was at a different level to what we experience today. This company mandated that we run our trucks only between sunrise and sunset. And the model was such that it really didn't hurt us to adhere to that in terms of the monthly running of the vehicle and the economics of that sort of an action. Over time, we saw that this had multiple benefits, and the number one benefit being, of course, that the road safety statistics of this operation were outstanding as compared to that in the rest of our businesses, which ran in a more unstructured manner where we did not monitor. We didn't have the tools to monitor. We didn't have the culture to monitor whether a driver drove after sunset or after midnight or early in the morning and what his state was at that time. And we started seeing that this was vastly beneficial to the entire operation. Fast forward about 10 years thereafter, we also, thanks to our exposure in this sort of a safety-driven business, we got an opportunity to work for petroleum and oil manufacturing companies, mostly MNCs who are already in India then and who are looking to up the game on road safety. We already had a decade of experience, and we were among their first operators for these sort of companies who were willing to walk the talk on making the businesses safer. Managing night driving was one of the most important aspects of this. Global statistics show that 80 to 90% of severe road accidents happen between maybe 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. across the world. This is not only an India stat, but I gather it's from across the world. Needless to say, there are genuine reasons for this. I mean, the human biorhythm is at its lowest around that time, in the pre-dawn hours. And our highways do not have a good infrastructure for either rest or refreshment. It's very, very basic. The lights on our trucks were of a quality that left a lot to be desired in terms of visibility on the roads. Many trucks plied without tail lamps, and a whole bunch of other reasons why driving through the night was fraught with danger. So in one stroke of the pen, when we were mandated once again by these clients not to run between, it varied from a 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. night driving ban to 11 a.m. to 5 a.m. night driving ban. It killed many, many birds with one stone. Primarily, it de-risked the whole operation because we were eliminating 80 or 90% of the risk of the activity by just keeping the trucks off the road. It also ensured that the drivers got adequate quality rest. There has always been an argument that putting multiple drivers on a truck takes care of that aspect. I beg to differ, although I do run operations with multiple drivers being on a truck, rather 2 drivers being on a truck. But one is aware that in an Indian scenario with all the noise, the heat, the constant braking, acceleration, it's not a quality sleep that even the resting driver does get. But when a truck is stationary, it's parked off the highway and it's in a relatively secluded spot, there is a much higher chance of that driver waking up duly refreshed the next day to work through the day. So we slowly moved to a model where we used the basic technology that was then available, IVMS, in-vehicle monitoring systems, to ensure that the drivers adhere to the expected night driving ban. We initially anticipated that there'd be resistance from drivers because classically Indian roads get busier in the night, but that's largely driven by the fact that, of course, it's weather driven because it's kinder on the trucks. The tires get less hot, the engines get less hot, but the big single reason that overrides both the others is the fact that there's relatively less checking of trucks in the night historically. Fortunately, that scenario has changed today with many of the checkposts having been disbanded over the last few years. So while we did have the initial resistance and the drivers did anticipate that there would be challenges in not driving through the night, we largely counsel them over a lot of time. And I think these sort of initiatives generally get driven top down, and because we as the senior management of the business believed that this was the best way forward. We insisted on our team and on our drivers. We interacted with them and told them that we were making their lives safer, their jobs safer, their health better by giving them an opportunity to work in a more structured manner. Of course, a truck driver does not have the luxury of going home and sleeping on a bed that doesn't move, on a large bed that most of us are privileged to have. But this is the next best thing we could do, allow him to stop the truck in a safe, pre-designated spot. When I say pre-designated, we mapped out most of the routes that the trucks regularly ply on, and we picked spots that they would approach or they would arrive at well in time to be able to optimize or adhere to the night driving ban. So a route, and then also we would mandate that they would start moving at 6 o'clock the next morning, and then ply through the available 16 or 18 hours of the day, or typically 16 hours of the day. That also fits in with some of the legal requirements of employment in India, which is of course something that is invariably overlooked in the trucking scenario. In terms of 10 hours of driving per day is what one employee can technically do, and he should not be spending more than so many hours on a truck, and the truck should be stationary for so many more hours. The question that naturally follows, is this economically viable? Experience shows that yes, it probably is economically viable, primarily because you have a very low rate of accidents. The wear and tear on your trucks is a lot lower. Needless to say, when a driver can see where he's driving or see better where he's driving, he will avert driving through bad roads, potholes, over speed breakers, hitting rocks on the road, which he may not have seen in the night, as opposed to driving through that section in the day. So the wear and tear is less. When the driver is rested and refreshed, he's probably more efficient than randomly driving for 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and maybe 6 hours through the night. There's a lot of devices that are now available which allow drivers to know that they are fatigued, which can, we have pushed many of our suppliers now, our vendors, to now bring in features such as mandated driver swaps. So these are largely operations where multiple drivers or two drivers drive a truck from origin to destination. So we have a system where between 2 a.m., 4 a.m., there is an automatic alert if the device does not sense that there's been a change of driver. So these are small efforts made at de-risking inherently risky operation. Needless to say, the accident statistics, unfortunately, or incident statistics in a 24-hour operation are sadly a lot different to those in a night driving banned operation.
That was Byram Dhalla, and clearly his company has gained immensely by imposing restrictions on night driving. But how is the next gen looking at this option? We will hear from Abhishek Goyal on the other side of this very short break. You are watching Aisha Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive.
कहने को लाइफ में सब कुछ है, फिर भी सपने खेल रहे हैं आंख मिचौली। अमित की लाइफ है कि पिकअप ही नहीं कर रही। दोस्त हैं, महफिलें हैं, पर रिश्तों में वो जिंदा दिली नहीं। अमित की लाइफ है कि पिकअप ही नहीं कर रही। फिर एक दोस्त ने बताई तरकीब, जो थी एकदम सही। पिकअप शिकअप की चिंता छोड़, बना ले लाइफ स्मार्ट अपनी। ले आ स्मार्ट सिटी ट्रक, बदल दे लाइफ अपनी। यह है आयशर प्रो 2049 स्मार्ट सिटी ट्रक।
भी लाइव करेगी पिकअप। यही है नई सोच, नए रास्ते। आयशर प्रो 2049 लाइफ बदल दे।
मेरी तो बदल दी।
Welcome back to Aishar Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive. Let's hear it from Abhishek Goyal on how his company is gaining from restricted night driving and how is he enforcing this even on market acquired trucks.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Abhishek Goyal. I'm a director at BLR Logistics, and I closely handle health and safety and compliance. And as part of compliance, one of the measures that we've taken is to stop night driving. And this initially started because it was a mandate by our chemical customers, because when we carry dangerous cargo, we have to make sure that we try to prevent accidents as much as possible. And data shows that a lot of accidents, or most accidents, happen between a certain time period, which is 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., which is why they have a very strict mandate about stopping night driving. And a company, being a company that focuses on compliance, we also wanted to make sure that we follow these instructions. And it's also a prerequisite for us to get their business. So we initially started off with our own vehicles. Obviously, that was easier to control because they are your own vehicles, your own drivers. So you can give them the working hours, working timings, and you can change behavior. But then we realized that what about the outsourced vehicles? The whole challenge was coming with outsourced vehicles. And for the customer, if they place a vehicle with us, they don't care if it's our own vehicle or it's an outsourced vehicle. For them, it's a BLR vehicle. So initially, it seemed to be a very big challenge. We were like, how do we manage random drivers, through random brokers, etc. But then we said, at least let's try. Let's try to talk to these people. Let's try to find a layer of subcontractors who are willing to comply. Just like the companies are trying to find land service providers like BLR who are willing to comply, I think we also have to build a layer where we find subcontractors who are willing to comply. So that's how we started, at least identifying, talking to brokers. We invited them to a broker meet where there were 300 brokers invited. We started off by telling them that, see, now norms are changing. These are the requirements for us. These are requirements coming down from a customer for us to get business. And if we get business, we'll give you more business. Basic things. Night driving was one, but even like having PPE, etc., fire extinguishers and all. So out of that, we figured out there were some who were ready. They said, we are willing to comply. So we said, we'll work exclusively with you. And then we narrowed down these subcontractors who are willing to kind of at least comply to some level. And then obviously we have a checks and balances. So now what happens is, even before our traffic manager engages in a market vehicle, if it has to be for a chemical customer, we tell them in advance that this vehicle cannot drive at night. If they drive at night, there will be a penalty, because we get charged a penalty if there's any night driving. So we make sure that they know. It's not something that they find out later. So we make sure we tell them, if your driver is going to listen, if he's not going to drive at night, only then you give me this vehicle number. Once we get the okay from them, then we have another layer of check. This is where our control tower gets the numbers of all the vehicles that are going to be loaded for chemical customers during that day. And we have a daily briefing. So they make sure they call each and every driver, and they understand that there's no night driving. Has the broker told you that there's no night driving? So there are these two checks that you have to comply to this. So we started doing this in, I think, 2018, And now today, I'm very happy to say that around 95% of night driving cases have stopped, even in outsourced vehicles. So that's how we've put and of course, the GPS system, the way the alerts are triggered, because we have to stop at around 11 p.m. Ideally 10 p.m., but then 11 p.m. tak if there's a grace or buffer period. So then the alerts are triggered in that way, that during that period we get alerts every half an hour, 1 hour, so that we know if a vehicle moves, then again those calls keep going to the driver that you have to stop, right? Of course, there are challenges like no entries, certain areas you have to cross before this thing. These are something that then we have to talk to our customer, take special permission, and then over time you kind of base your operations around those no entries, etc. Like we know that there's a no entry, तो उसको वहाँ cross करके खड़ा होना है या बाद में cross करना है. So that you have to figure out over time, and it's not like we are asking the driver to stop at night and then cover up during the day. They don't have that pressure. The whole idea is that you don't drive at night, and we understand that drivers want to drive at night because of the weather conditions. They are more favorable, and also the traffic police issue and all is less at night. But we have seen honestly that after we stopped night driving, touch wood, the accident levels have drastically come down. And I personally, because I look into a lot of data that we get from devices, now with the camera feed that we have inside and outside, and I see how drowsy drivers are during that critical period, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. It's really scary when you see these videos. It's almost like most drivers are just, there's an accident waiting to happen because they're so drowsy, So once you see these live images, then you realize that why all this happens. And even if the driver is not drowsy, there are other people who are driving recklessly on the road, and then the truck driver gets blamed. And all this happens during those hours. So we decided that we have to do this for at least all our fleet, at least BLR fleet, unless it's a very urgent thing. But then again, we have to make sure that it's either a double driver or the driver is not fatigued. If the driver is already driven throughout the day, then we won't ask him to drive at night. If it's let's say it's an urgent delivery, etc. So that you have to make sure. The whole idea of not driving at night is to avoid fatigue. And I've seen like videos of live accidents happening when they, kind of like a little snooze they take on the wheel, and it's scary. We've not had any fatal accidents, I would say, in the last 2 years. Minor, those incidents and all, cars touching and all that. And see, all this also after a lot of training, after so many devices, etc., we managed to bring them down. But when you see data from the device also, you realize that violations happen during those periods. So if you stop driving during that period, violation anyways will come down. Right. So that's your first step towards stopping accidents or preventing accidents.
It is evident that while night driving is a preferred option by truck drivers because of lesser officials on the roads, lesser traffic, and better climate conditions, especially during summers. But with statistics proving that night driving can be dangerous, can night driving be avoided? Byram and Abhishek have pointed out the benefits. What will be your choice? You have been watching Eicher Presents Moving India with Nayi Soch, a Trans India exclusive. We will be back again next week with yet another exciting episode.